So welcome everyone. As we bring up our PowerPoint slides here, I wanted to make sure to welcome everyone to the latest in our Leadership Coach Group webinar series. This webinar is called Brand You, Build a Personal Brand that Stands Out and Opens Doors. And we're really excited to have you with us. And it invites you in the chat to share where you're calling in from. So if you find the chat icon at the bottom of your screen, you can click on there, and we'd love to know, where are you calling in from? Somewhere in the United States, from a different country. Share your city. We'd love to hear from you to know where you're calling in from. Please do share that in the chat. Thank you, Robin, for sharing that. Yeah, thank you all for sharing that information. We got Robin calling in from Austin, Texas. We've got Reva calling in from the Philippines. She's part of our team, and Sherry from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We have Connie calling in from the Virgin Islands, and we've got Jerry, also a member of our team, calling in from New York, New York. So glad to have you all with us today. Carrie from Lauderhill, Florida. Welcome, Carrie. My name is Michael Seelman. I'm calling in from the Washington, D.C. area. We've got Maya also from our team calling in from the Philippines. Great to have you with us, Maya. So if you're just joining us, again, my name is Michael Seelman. I'm the CEO of the Leadership Coach Group. Welcome you to our webinar today about developing a personal brand. And we'll be helping you do that during our webinar. It's got, of course, Sarah, our presenter. You'll hear more about her, also in the Washington, D.C. area. And we have Karen from Flint, Michigan. We have Jeff Will from Boulder, Colorado. Great to have you, Jeff. Boulder's, my wife lived in Boulder. I had a great experience living there earlier in her life. So good to have you, Jeff. Well, let's jump right in. If anyone joins us, we'd love to hear where you're calling in from. Please share that in the chat. Again, my name is Michael Seelman. I'm the CEO of the Leadership Coach Group, and I want to welcome you to the latest in our webinar series, Open Coaching, because we mix both content with coaching. So that's where our term Open Coaching comes from. Today's webinar is called Brand You, Build a Personal Brand that Stands Out and Opens Doors, just like we have in that graphic right there, that confident woman executive opening a door with a very strong brand. Today's presenter is Sarah Sutton. She's a master certified coach. Be hearing more from her in a minute, but Sarah, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you. I'm 2 weeks into sore throat, so my voice is a little gravelly, but I appreciate your graciousness in rolling with that.
Thank you for joining us, Sarah. And even despite getting over that illness, we're really glad to have you. It looks like we also had Emily join us from the Denver metro area in Colorado. So welcome to you as well, Emily. Thank you for joining us. So this webinar is the latest in a series. We do it every month, the first Friday of the month at noon Eastern Standard Time. And we rotate different hosts, so you can see a different member of our talented team and them bringing their superpowers to you to share content with you. But one thing that's consistent is that first Friday of the month at noon Eastern Standard Time. So we hope that you can tune in, and in a follow-up email, we'll give you information about how to register for the next webinars. In these webinars, we try to give you actionable insights, things that you can put into practice right away. And that will be true of this webinar as well, as Sarah will be sharing with you. And with each webinar, we also give a playbook, as we call it. Actually, that term was coined by Carl on our team, who's joining us. Playbook is a step-by-step guide about how to implement the things that we talk about in the webinar. So if you wanted to get deeper into what Sarah covers today and you want help going step-by-step through it, you can turn to our guide, and that will help you do that. In our webinar series, we also have live open coaching, and that'll be true today. So we encourage you to think about if you want to step up and have Sarah's direct help, she'll be happy to do that. So I hope you'll volunteer when we come to that portion of our agenda. To jump more into the playbook, this is what it looks like. And part of what will be in the guide will be the 4 steps that Sarah will be covering today. And those are to relate, reflect, to reveal, and to reinvent. It'll also include practical tools and techniques and include engaging reflection questions and hands-on activities to help you implement the strategies that Sarah discusses. And we hope you take advantage of our services. What we design these webinars to do is to be standalone to help you advance your own practice of leadership. But if you want to go further, we are there for you. We have services for whether you're looking for services for yourself or for your organization. The things that we offer are one-on-one coaching. We offer services around team effectiveness, such as group coaching, team coaching. We also have leadership assessments and personality assessments, inspirational speakers. We have a whole variety of resources that can help you advance your practice of leadership. We try to be your one-stop shop, whether you're an individual or an organization. We want to be there for you. And we have a really talented team of leadership development professionals. They have worked with people at Fortune 500 corporations like the ones you've seen here, such as Oracle, Dropbox, Microsoft, SAP, Facebook, NextAir, Energy, Salesforce, Google, Sony, FICO, you name it. Our coaches have worked with executives at these organizations, and they can help you too. You might think, well, maybe I'm not part of a company that's that large. Well, we just haven't put up all the brands of the companies we work with. You might not recognize them all, but we worked out with anywhere from one-person companies, owners and founders, up to large corporations. We'll hear and we can help you as well. Next slide. So often in these webinars I've been a part of and say, gosh, will I get a copy of the slides? Yes, you'll get a copy of the slides. Yes, you'll get a link to the personal branding playbook, and you'll have an opportunity to get a complimentary coaching session from Sarah. All these things, there'll be a follow-up email 2 minutes after the broadcast ends. They'll give you a link to a page that has the playbook, has the slide deck, and in a few days, we'll have a copy of the recording of the webinar as well. And it'll have links to schedule your complimentary coaching session with Sarah. We have a special opportunity that will also be on the same webpage, and that's to join our first Women in HR Mastermind. And this will be led by Sarah Sutton, our Master Certified Coach. So you'll get a taste of what it's like working with her today, and we hope you'll sign up for this mastermind as well if that's of interest. If it's not of interest to you personally, we hope you let your colleagues know who it might be of interest to. And this mastermind, we're kind of subtitling Grit and Grace. Sarah came up with that nice subtitle. And it's this mastermind to help you communicate effectively with every audience, to staying calm no matter what the situation, to workshop your engaging challenges with your peers, and to gauge them as thought partners. And it's more than just meetings. This is an opportunity for you to include executive coaching setting in this exclusive cohort. We hope if this applies to you, that you'll take advantage of it. Here we have a QR code that you can scan to learn more about it. But as I mentioned, the follow-up email will also have a link where you can learn more and sign up to express your interest. So now I get the pleasure to introduce our presenter today, and that's Sarah Sutton. Sarah is a personal branding expert. She specializes in building unshakable confidence in leaders by helping them define, communicate, and balance their leadership style. She's also a master certified coach, something I aspire to be, but I'm not yet. She's already achieved that distinction, where only 4% of coaches worldwide have achieved that distinction. And she's been guiding C-suite and emerging leaders to success using that experience, background, and training that she has as a master certified coach. She's an expert in role transitions and well-being. She's passionate about career growth, self-care, leadership development, and she empowers leaders, particularly women, but all leaders, to thrive in high stakes environments. I imagine that's through also helping them identify their values and their personal branding. She's a connector and problem solver. She's known as a thread puller who helps people ask the tough questions, and she asks them as well. She uncovers key insights and fosters professional and personal breakthroughs. That's my introduction to Sarah. But Sarah, I want to give you opportunities. Anything you want to add to this introduction?
Thank you for that glowing introduction, Michael. It's always great to partner with you and the team. And the one thing that I wanted to really highlight is that I started my coaching career solidly as a health and wellness coach. And the reason that I am so passionate about this branding work is that I've been successful in branding myself and rebranding. So it really was, my tagline was to stop fighting yourself, call a truce. When it came to wellness, it was specifically with women and their weight loss journeys. And then as I evolved to executive and leadership coaching, it's really about stop fighting yourself and trust your greatness again. Because what I found is my sweet spot is rather than so much skill development, I help leaders to remember your excellence. And it's now evolved a third time to working with their teams, collectively remembering their greatness. So it's helped, my brand work for myself has helped me to really laser in on how I want to communicate on my website. It has helped me to crystallize my communication on LinkedIn. I'm now seeing, quite an uptick in followers. And more than anything, I hear from clients all the time that they really can relate to it. So that's some of what we're going to be doing today to help you to land your particular essence, your brand in the world. If you can, I can go ahead and take this over. If there's anything else that you want to share, Michael, I know we have a mindful moment coming next.
Yeah, I wanted to mention we have a few more people that joined us. We have Sarah that joined us from Palm Beach. Welcome, Sarah. Georgia from Boston. Welcome, Georgia. Good to see you. And Donna from Palm Beach. Welcome to you all. So glad you could join us. And Georgia asked the question, are we muted by default? Yes, you are. But when we have an opportunity to get direct coaching during the webinar from Sarah, we would ask people to come off mute and come on camera, anyone that volunteers for that. But until that point, everyone's muted and off camera. Back to you, Sarah.
Okay, so we will be pulling the thread through from your past impact as it will inform your future. But right now, I'll invite you to close distractions in this distraction-riddled world that we are in and really come into this moment because we're about to do something great, which is to really nurture what your particular excellence is. So I'll invite you to do this in 3 quick steps. Go ahead and anchor yourself by putting your feet in the floor to really ground yourself. Roll your shoulders back to really open yourself to this process and settle in your heart. Maybe take a couple breaths there. Okay, we're off and running. So next slide, please. So I want you to take a look at this for a brief moment, but I think I'm going to actually ask to stop the screen share because I've since added a few things that we don't have covered in the slides. So this will be the 4-step process that we'll be walking through. I'll mostly be spending time on step number 3, but we'll be touching on all of those. But first, I want to share 3 reasons why it's important to do this brand work, 4 steps, and then I'll get to 5 specific applications, which I'll be sprinkling throughout. So go ahead and if we can stop the screen share. I just wanted to really underline, here's what I find most impactful about this brain work. I hear from clients, unfortunately, they'll come to me and say, you know what, I got passed over for a promotion and I know I'm better than the person who was selected. I have the experience and I have the strengths. And yet I know that they had an in with the more senior leaders. They just have self-advocated in a way that I haven't because I don't really want to do that. It feels egotistical to me. So that's the first thing. We will help you to figure out how to do that in a seamless way that will strip out any arrogance. The second reason is that say you already have a seat at the table. Well, but you're not really being heard. So we'll help you to crystallize your message in a way that you can iterate on, and it will really help to grab the attention of those in the meetings that you're in. It can also be a chance to really upgrade and say you want to take it to the next level and become an industry stand out. So that could be about writing a book or engaging in speaking engagements, but you really need to have a crystallized message that others want to hear. So your brand will enable you to do that. And thirdly, it's also about if you're in a job transition, you can actually use this as a chance to really focus your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and also in an interview. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, so my husband is in the middle of a transition. Just a couple of weeks ago, very quickly, we went through this with him. He now says that he solves 2 problems at once. He's an IT professional, specifically a cloud engineer, but in many ways, that could be a dime a dozen. Here's what's so wonderful is that he was seeing his distraction as a deficit. He literally is sitting at his desk solving his own computer problem while he's kind of listening to his colleague, but like, hey, I think I have an idea for you. And we brought that to his attention. And also he tends to not only bring past problems as solutions to the present that he's working at, but he also is thinking in terms of how to prevent future risks. Again, we are able to, within just a couple of sentences, map that to his LinkedIn profile in a way that will stand out. More than anything, he now sees a deficit as his superpower. So even if you don't articulate your brand, by doing this work, it helps to uplevel your confidence in remarkable ways. So there you go. That's already the first application that I want to share. Essentially, the 3 needs are, instead of being passed over, we want you to be promoted. Instead of being talked over, we want you to be recognized. And instead of being buried at the bottom of the resume pile, we want you to stand out. All right, let's go to back to the slides if we can. Back to that original slide. So my first step is for you to really consider and reflect on what makes for a great brand. So in some of the promotions that we did leading up to this, we shared some well-known speakers in the various industries. Ones that I like to really highlight is, and by the way, let's go ahead and use the chat. So go ahead and start putting in the chat, like, what's a brand that really speaks to you? I love Sarah Blakely because she's the founder of Spanx. And the reason that I feel like she has such a distinct style, she's about body positivity and really body acceptance. And if you've ever seen her on social media, she is kind of a quirky character. I think I've seen her rollerblading, if that's still a thing, on LinkedIn or Facebook. But she really embodies embracing who you are and standing out. Oprah Winfrey is certainly a classic one, but there's also Beyonce. She likes to say, I'm not bossy, I'm the boss. And you can see her do that, right? Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. Brene Brown, maybe some of you have known Brene Brown as a psychologist. She's a speaker, and she really has a unique style. A couple things that she likes to say is clear is kind and courage over comfort. And particularly, she actually models in her speaking engagements, vulnerably sharing things that she's, the misses that she's had in life. And so that, again, is a chance for her to really embrace the very concept that she's about. So, somebody's saying they really love Brene. Thank you for adding that. Who else would you add into the mix? Let's get some of the dialogue going. Michael, anyone that comes to your mind? Or Maya?
Well, Tony Robbins has a pretty strong brand.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's what I want us to think about. It's like, what is it about the brand? Because I'm going to be helping you to shape a statement, but it can also be about, like, literally your smile, your voice. Something, are you known for wearing power red? So it could be something bodily. Oftentimes, it's very much a mindset that you're carrying. So I'll just invite you to consider what it is that you especially, that resonates for you, because that might also inform what you want your brand to be. Adam Grant, that's great. All right, go ahead and let's move to the reflect step. So I like to go about helping clients to work with their brand in 2 specific ways. One is helping them to operationalize their values into what I call principles. I think we have a little bit of a delay with the screen share. So I'll just walk you through this. So some of you have probably done some work on your values. Really quickly, here are a few ways to do that. Think of a peak moment in time. So maybe it was, oh, you are on vacation with your family at a beach. So that might point to values of connection, restoration, nature, any of that. It could also be what you feel like you must have in life. Maybe it's creative expression. Or the flip, the inverse, is what frustrates you. So if you hate being micromanaged, that might point to a value of freedom. Okay, so I'm going to assume that maybe you have an idea of this. So this is where, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Because unfortunately, most development programs just leave it at that. I like to take it one step further, and by working through your values and making them principles, this now gives you a guiding compass for your decisions. So that's application number 2. These are live examples that I have from clients that I've worked with that helps them to know when they're hitting their values, and also helps them to really rally their teams at times too. So for example, the learning value. One leader I worked with, recognize that she wants to start stimulating learning, whatever environment she's in. So that would probably require her to let's get the brainstorming going. Let me be the first one to make a statement or to ask a question, and to be okay with not knowing it. Same leader also had a value of inclusivity. And this is a term now, rightly so. It's about really inviting all voices into the room. But this leader realized that in order to do that, she needed to probably be the one who really goes there and vulnerably models the sharing in order to then invite all voices into the room. So you can see some other, again, these are really unique phrases. The influence is oh gosh, I know I need to say something when there's a catch in the back of my throat. So I'm not going to remain silent. So that's how I'm living out my value of influence. So as you can see, these can be compelling in their own right. All right, let's go ahead and move on to what we're really gearing up to, which is my favorite thing to do, which is, and before we get to the next slide where I give examples, I want to start inviting you. No, you can go to this next slide before we go to the example slide after it. Yeah, I want you all to be considering right now, what was a moment in time, a story at work or at home, when you knew without a doubt that you were making an impact? That is what is going to make you compellingly you. And really what I want you to think about is what was going on? What was the snapshot scenario, as succinctly as you can if you do volunteer for this? How did you in particular, roll that story out? And essentially, what was the impact, the end result, the success that you had that affected those around you? So let's go ahead to the examples. You'll see in a moment that this is not resume speak. So again, a lot of people talk about doing brand work. I still feel like it ends up being, your classic elevator pitch or resume speak. If it's not in your bones and it doesn't rattle off in a unique way, then we need to keep doing some work on it, because these are such simple words, but they're put together in such a unique way that it becomes memorable. So the example, I'd like to point out a couple of examples from this particular slide, although I have dozens of stories that ended in these brand statements, and they really came from these stories, which we'll be doing in a moment with each of you, while I'm inviting the whole community to be listening, while I kind of take notes and help you noodle through what is your unique essence. So the third one down, create space so others can keep their heads up. This comes with a leader I worked with years ago. In fact, I'm still working with her, but she is a senior leader at a university, and she remembered back in her teaching days, I think it was in high school, there was a student that was flunking. All the teachers were failing him, and probably rightly so. But she said, you know what? If you just come to my class and show up, I will pass you. Well, years go by and he came back, and now he was a success. And he said that made all the difference, that she would just, enable him, empower him in such a way. So in noodling on that together, we came up with this statement. Hey, I create space so others can keep their heads up. Now, that's not resume speak. Nobody else can claim it as theirs either. It's so unique to her. And in addition to crystallizing the decisions that she makes, it also helps her to rally her team. Hey, team, I and we are about creating space. How are we going to use that with this student population or with this department that we're meant to team up with? She uses it to reflect on for herself. hey, my work-life balance is out of play. How am I going to create space this very weekend? So, and she's also been known as a unicorn because she's really targeted her language in interviews that she's had. So again, back to I think we're on like application number 4 now. It helps you to rise to the top in, interviews or on LinkedIn. It helps you to, as a compass for your decisions for yourself personally or, in teaming. It helps you to rally your team. And then the fourth one that I want to really point to is, let me give you one more example. The last one down. I change people's minds for experiences that change people's lives. I actually was presenting about this time last year at an International Women's Day event on this very topic. But as part of the introduction with the HR team that was putting this on for our global company, I was sitting with the VP of Employee Experience in HR, and I asked her to walk me through a story of impact. And in noodling on that together in just a few minutes, we were able to realize that she really needs to first change the senior leaders' minds about the money she's wanting to spend that she knows is going to make an impact on the employee base that she's in charge of. So that's where we came up with, I change people's minds for experiences that change people's lives. That's probably one of the more longer one, but I'm hoping that you agree with me that these things actually have a really unique ring. So the fourth application is, I almost like to think of this as self-advocation by almost referencing yourself a little bit in the third person. This is not quite right, but essentially the way that you could, once you land your brand statement, advocate in a seamless way that doesn't have that arrogance is to start referencing things like, hey, I always like to say, find the yes. So here's how I think we can do that here in this meeting. Or, be the fire starter. Here's how I think that might work here. Or, team, we have to really extinguish this fire. We're also about that. So you just almost explain it as, this is the motto, this is what I believe about, and you just continue iterating on it. Here's the interesting thing. It's almost like you need to plant seeds for the very thing you want others to know about you so that they don't fill it in. But you create the optics on the very thing that makes you special, and yet you brighten it up even more, if that makes sense. So that's the fourth application, is seamless self-advocation. I am getting a little bit of a ding, so I don't know if everybody's muted or whatnot, but the fifth application is that use this as a chance to stand out in your industry. So again, I've worked through, in one session, I was able to help a client to not only land her brand statement, it became her book title. So book title, or if you want to take it the next level and start speaking at conferences. So this is where the fifth application is to evolve it even one step further. So I hope you can see the value already of this. The last thing that I really wanted to say is that what we're about to do is not technically what generative coaching is. If you've had an experience of coaching, it's just a beautiful dance between the coach and the coachee of, open-ended questions. Hey, I'm hearing this, like really reflecting emotions in order for the coachee to have a breakthrough. We're going to be doing a little bit more of a facilitated type of coaching in a moment, but I'm just trusting, and I'm kind of putting myself at risk here, that we're going to help you come up with your particular essence if you're willing to volunteer. So, Michael, I'm going to turn it back to you in just a moment. Go ahead and we can go to the next slide in terms of asking for a volunteer. But let me set you up with, really, I would love for you to, you do nothing else but think of a story of personal impact. And I will walk you through like filling in the details. It doesn't have to be a really long story, but I'm going to invite the whole audience right now to also be really keying into what are the unique turns of phrase. What are you hearing that especially sticks with you? And that story of impact needs to be, what happened? How did you contribute in particular to that? And what was the impact? So be thinking about that and start, go ahead and volunteer yourself in the chat.
Sarah, thanks so much for sharing that content. I love the way you emphasize the really unique branding statements. I appreciate more when you went through that, how to really give it a lot of thought. And I look forward to you doing that with one of our volunteers. So I encourage someone to volunteer. If you're interested in volunteering, please let us know in the chat. To be a volunteer, what we need you to do is be open to engaging in a meaningful conversation with Sarah about your own personal brand. She'll be asking you questions. And by participating, by volunteering, we want you to consent to being recorded. And this recording might be shared online in whole of a whole webinar or in parts in different posts. So by volunteering, you're expressing your consent to being recorded and having that recording shared. And because of the dynamics of the way this Zoho webinar works, we need you to be on a desktop or a laptop. If you're joining us on a mobile device, you won't be able to be seen and heard as well as we'd like. Okay, so we have Sherry saying she's having a hard time finding her own story of impact. So if it's Sherry or others
Think
like
about
her,
home. Think home. So think of your personal life, because you're a seamless human being. So if you're having struggling with that story of impact, I'm also happy to pivot. We could also help you to operationalize a top value into a principle, but really get clear so that becomes a compass as well. So please don't let that stop you.
Sherry, would you like to volunteer? Sounds like you were on the edge of volunteering. Let us know.
All right, we got Sherry. So if you can set Sherry up, let's go ahead and roll with that. So the other, again, in this International Women's Day event, I had the group go into breakouts and they noodled on it together, but one person came back, as this still sticks with me. It had something to do with I'm the Sudoku master of media. What? That is so interesting. And you kind of know what the person's talking about, but no, tell me more. So you can hear and physically see people leaning in. And that's what we want this to be. Commonplace words that are put together very uniquely. I did also want to share that sometimes it's not a statement. I had somebody actually start walking around with a Rubik's Cube, because what she realized that she does is that she really puts the puzzle pieces together, because she's such an integrator with different matrix teams. Hey, Sherry, delightful to meet you. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Is it Sherry?
Yes, Sherry.
Okay, Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you so much for volunteering. So I had promised that it wouldn't be too hard to think through a story of impact. I gave you a couple other ideas in terms of, could you think of at home? Just when do you know that you're making a difference? Now, I'm going to call the audience, the team as well. I'll invite you to actually be keying into anything that Sherry says that really strikes you as what is her unique essence and what's the impact that she made. And I might have my head down as I take notes and kind of think this through. So
okay, so you just want me to start?
Yeah, just share a story. I mean, just start talking.
Okay, sure. One of the things that I do for my own professional development and engagement is volunteer at a local talent development organization. And as part of that, I took on the role to facilitate sessions for other talent development professionals who were striving to obtain their certification. It is a certification provided by the international organization. It's ATD, Association for Talent Development. And I really felt at that time, now that I've been thinking about it since been on the call, that the feedback I received from those individuals that I worked with over several weeks really did make a difference for them. And I felt like my facilitation, my partnership with them, and that my support in their efforts to take their own self-directed approach to their studying and their preparation was helpful, and that it made an impact. So yeah, I felt really good at the time, and continue to do it over a handful of years, working with others. And so, yeah, it was a really good experience for myself.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'm loving that. I've already got some comments going on in the chat of what you are already starting to noodle on. And really, so love the concepts. And what we want to do is maybe even have Sherry use Sherry's unique words. So let me ask you a couple more questions, Sherry, if I can.
Sure.
What do you feel like, what was some of the feedback that you got, by the way? That strikes you especially?
Yeah, so I guess bringing enthusiasm to the sessions. We met on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. on a regular basis. So sometimes that was always fun because, you know, we're working all week and then we're working again on Saturday. So bringing that levity and enthusiasm to the sessions, that was some feedback that I received. Just the caring and the support that I provided, having gone through it myself, the trials and tribulations of studying, taking the exam at one point, not passing that first time, and taking on the challenge of doing it again. And so I think them knowing that story from me was helpful as well.
Good. Let's see. So there's something that I'm latching onto, and I still recognize that there are all kinds of ideas coming through in the chat. Somebody said, Donna says sunshine in human form. So what's really the first thing that I keyed into is that you partner with these other folks who are wanting to get their certification in a way that empowers them to be even more self-directed. So there's something about that juxtaposition of partnering in order to enable the self even more. I don't know. So there's something like, you know, been there, partnered with you to do it too. Speak to me a little bit more about that juxtaposition, if you can, Sherry, about partnering in order to empower the self.
Sure. So in that particular situation, it really required the individuals to carve out their own cadence, meaning their own time that they would focus on practicing for the exam, reading, and spending time on it. So it was really about helping them to be motivated to do that and to know that they could achieve and pass the exam. It was possible for them to do it. There were many others that had come before them who had been successful, and even given all their doubts that they may have, I felt like I was in that role of the cheerleader, of being like, you know, you can actually do this. So it was yeah, that effort was like trying to help them to carve out that path for themselves, to know that they could do it, and then set themselves up by practicing and preparing so that they could.
This is gonna, I'm kind of smiling because this is gonna sound a little odd, and yet I almost want to just go with like 10 a.m. on a Saturday. I'm all about 10 a.m. on a Saturday. And of course, you'd have to like give a little bit more context of, but it's about you gifting your time to enable others to find the time. Like really, again, this kind of coming alongside, even during these off hours, you know, breaking the doubt so that they can do it too. So this is kind of like a little bit in a pivot from a statement necessarily, like the Rubik's Cube, but it's conceptually is something that, again, I'm trying to look for the unique. So I'm all about 10 a.m. on a Saturday. That's how you extend yourself. And like almost if you think about when you're meeting with somebody 10 a.m. on a Saturday, it's a little bit more casual. You're kind of like have that idea of coming alongside. Anyway, how's that striking you?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's I don't know, it's something to noodle on, I guess, using your words.
So how does, if we were to just still tease that out, 10 a.m. on a Saturday, what do you feel like the connection is with talent development in particular?
Well, I guess sometimes, I mean, what comes to mind is like sometimes it's about time that's spent outside of what might be considered work time. that we need to sometimes devote to ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah, okay. So some more of a interesting kind of like layering of like these professionals want to help talent to develop themselves, and yet you have to spend some time on you too. So it's like talent development squared or something like that. I don't even know.
Huh.
But there something struck you. What's playing through your mind?
I don't know. That just kind of was an interesting little catchy way of saying it. Talent development squared.
Yeah, play with that a little bit more. In your words, what would that be about?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's, again, in this circumstance, assisting those who are already motivated coming into the session to spend that time. But it's like sustaining that motivation. It's that it's keeping it going. That's really critical, right? You can get started, but that's only getting started. You've got to have the persistence and the perseverance, I guess, to keep it going.
So I'm hearing a couple things with this. Again, maybe we haven't quite landed it, but there's something about this. So first of all, talent development squared. Like the squared part now turns it in a unique way, because like there are tons of talent development professionals out there, right? But I'm hearing the talent development, they're like a double, at least a double. There probably could be third entendre. What's that French word? Double entendre. So it's about talent development, as a profession. But first you got to develop your own self. It's also, there's something about the sustainability. Like you're not just once and done talent development, but you've really got to it's an ongoing endeavor. So how do you sustain that? And you did that in such a way by kind of coming alongside and enthusiastically inviting people to embrace that journey for themselves. So there's, oh, and then somebody else is Donna, loving your participation here. Talent development through different stages. I don't know, maybe you even like flex it to be squared or cubed, quadruple, like you, and you could collapse or constrain this however you want. You can add different stories, different examples. So I'm not sure we necessarily landed it, but I see something's resonating. So what's sticking with you, Sherry?
Well, it's what's coming up too is that it's, for myself, I guess I'm thinking of it even more broadly, so outside of talent development, where it's in general, right? I mean, if it's the efforts that I'm doing and working with somebody in a coaching partnership, or in this case, in the volunteer work that I was doing, it is that partnership. It's about that ongoing, sustained support, to lift others as they're, moving through the challenges of doing what it is that they want to do for themselves to help themselves grow.
I think you just opened up the definition of talent even a little differently. So it's also about the seamless human being and the personal talent, and kind of seeing that in multi-layered ways too. So again, I'm kind of seeing this in a few different ways, but it's talent development squared, or it's taking it to the next level. Something about just a few different angles that you do. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the talent development squared. I mean, I like it to be, it's kind of short and sweet and it's interesting.
But Michael put talent squared partner. I know we need to start wrapping. Talent squared partner. So perfectly okay if we haven't quite landed this. How would you, I won't ever leave you hanging. So I'll give you some ideas for how you can noodle on this some more. But what occurs to you, Sherry, as to how you might work with refining this?
Well, I mean, I guess just a matter of maybe thinking through what might be some other impact stories, and maybe pulling from them what might be some ideas that I can then capture in those few words for an impact statement.
Yeah. Perfect. And I do want to start passing this over to Michael. So hang in there a minute, because I will share a little bit more about how you can work with this some more. But first of all, I know the rest of you are on mute, but big hand for Sherry taking that step. And I'm excited about helping her to cultivate what is her unique essence. Thank you for your participation. And Sherry, love where you're going with let me think about some other impact stories, because that will help to really solidify this concept and even start to crystallize it. And then guess what? You have some ready-made examples that you can point to depending on the situation that might, one might be more relatable than another story. I would also recommend partnering, and we have this in the playbook, partner up with a friend, with a colleague, say, hey, I think this is what makes me unique. What do you think? Maybe they have some feedback, or they could help you to noodle on it a little bit differently. And then finally, just start playing with it. The more you play with it, you'll land on the language that's just going to naturally come through. And so that's a way to take this one step further. So feel free to pop in the chat. How was that for all of you to kind of see how that went? I mean, it's a very organic process. I'm kind of putting myself on the line there. Really appreciate your volunteer engagement as well. But how is this for you in terms of starting to think about your story of impact and how you would take that thread through for yourself? And I'll pass it back to you, Michael. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And feel free to share in the chat how that experience was for you, as Sarah was just inviting you to do. And Sherry, I want to thank you for volunteering. We really appreciate it. Hopefully, and just a reminder, part of you participating in this webinar today gives you access to a complimentary coaching session from Sarah. So whether, Sherry, if you want to noodle on it a little bit more and then set up an appointment with Sarah so she can help you finalize that, we invite you to do that. Or anyone that's participating today, we invite you to set up that complimentary coaching section.
Thank you, Sarah.
So, as I mentioned, just as a reminder, there's going to be a follow-up email following this broadcast, and that will include a link to our personal branding playbook that you can work through, as you just saw Sarah do with Sherry. They'll help you do it in the quiet of your own home or your office or wherever you choose to do that, so you can think back through times when you've had that personal story of impact. You can think through the different steps that Sarah was just able to do in a micro coaching session. You can do that at your own pace through our playbook. We also will be sending you a link where you can access the slide deck from today, as well as schedule that complimentary coaching session with Sarah. And we welcome your feedback. So you can scan this QR code, or also in that follow-up email, it'll have a link to a survey. And actually, if we set up properly, right after the webinar ends, if you hang on there an extra minute, it'll pop up an evaluation. We'd love to get your feedback on what you thought of this, what part of our webinar series, and we act on that feedback. So thank you so much. If you give us that feedback, we appreciate it. We hope you can do that. And we want to mention the next webinar we have coming up. That's how do I develop a bolder executive presence yet still be me? And so that's where I help you define your distinct leadership brand, to learn to embody it with executive presence. When Sarah and I were preparing for this webinar, she brought up the point that it's a really good companion to what she just covered, where it helps you identify what your personal brand is. And our next webinar series, you'll talk about how do I then present myself with that brand? How do I show up in meetings so I have the executive presence, that brand that I want to be known for? So that's been the focus of our next webinar, which will be also another one of our really talented coaches, Marie-Jeanne Juillon. You'll have a chance to hear from her, and she's coached many very prominent executives like a Fortune 500 corporations. So I hope you join us. And that is April 4th at noon Eastern time. And in the follow-up email, there'll be a link to register for that webinar as well. We hope you'll do that. And we want to remind you of our Women in HR Mastermind, Grit and Grace. Let me give Sarah an opportunity. Sarah, anything you want to say about the mastermind, since you'll be leading it for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ever since I discovered coaching, I absolutely love it because it's a chance to really empower you. I feel like I'm living my purpose when you are living yours. So we're inviting specifically women in HR to mastermind in a couple different ways. So there might be, I really see my sweet spots as three things under the umbrella of living your edge, your confident edge. So this first bucket being about what we did here, really capturing your unique leadership style. It's also about being an effective communicator and balancing that with your self-care. Because remember, well-being is a passion of mine. So we might do that as a backdrop, any of those topics to get into. But at any point in time, this is also about a chance to really navigate through emerging challenges that you might bring in today's topsy-turvy world, having that cohort of peers is absolutely a gem, particularly as you rise in your leadership. You might feel so siloed. And so that's gold from a couple different angles. It's both peer coaching and executive coaching that you can't get anywhere else. So really the learn more is just your interest. So definitely sign up and we'll send you more information.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for adding additional color to our mastermind. And some people in the chat have kind of answered your invitation to share what they've got from this experience. We had Jeff Will, who said, got the creative juices flowing, a lot to think about and mold into a refined message. Well, Jeff, that playbook can help you do that, and the complimentary coaching session with Sarah. So I hope you take advantage of both those resources for you. And Sarah was also, following up with Jeff about that. And then Robin said it helped her think about her own impact statement. And Sarah said, hey, help me get started. I think I can go ahead and work on her own story. And she enjoyed listening to Sherry go through it because it probably helped things percolate for her. And similarly, Donna said, she asked how the words start to flow so easily once you have some good guidance and coaching. Sounds like you were a catalyst for her, Sarah. So thanks, Donna, for sharing that. So we want to remind you that this webinar series is just part of the support that we can provide you. We have one-on-one coaching, we have group coaching, we have team coaching, we have inspirational speakers, and now masterminds as well. So we hope you take advantage of all our resources. We hope you take advantage of that playbook. Hope you sign up for that complimentary coaching session with Sarah that'll be available through that link in the follow-up email. We'd love you to provide your feedback on this webinar. We really appreciate that. And want to thank Sarah for presenting. I want to thank Sherry for volunteering. I want to thank our entire team.
I had one other thought before you go, Michael. I had one other thought. Go ahead.
Okay. And I want to thank Carl and Maya for helping us with this. And back to you, Sarah.
I was just going to say, Sherry, I am still thinking about this. This is, and I hope you are too, and maybe even the rest of the group too, but I'm literally thinking in terms of again, even if we don't have necessarily oh, I'm your, talent development or squared, or Michael, what did you put on their talent squared partner? It's something about you develop a person in a couple different ways at once. So it's maybe them personally as well as professionally. It's about partnering with them in a way that helps them to then be an excellent partner for others. It's about helping them to develop through the stages. It's, the ongoing cycle of it. So that could be part of your language too. I'm just offering that as an invitation, you take it or not, that it's about not just developing you as a one-dimensional human being, but you really invest in the person and you develop them in a couple different ways all at once. So
yeah, Sarah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's definitely got my thoughts going. And I actually have two colleagues on the call today. So in terms of the thought that you shared about having somebody give you other feedback, I'm going to ask them to do that. So that'll help me as well.
And you can partner in return because now you have some of the contacts. That's so perfect. So yeah. I know we have just a minute or two left. I'm happy to stay on for any questions.
So,
and thank you for your engagement. Yeah.
As you can see, when our coaches start serving their clients, they keep percolating, keep thinking about it, and they're available. That's a beautiful thing about coaching, is iterative like that. So Sarah's generous in offering anyone that wants to stay on. So For those of you that need to go, you can go ahead, but Sarah said she can stay on an additional few minutes and take any questions. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Sarah about personal branding or the Women's in HR Mastermind? She's open to taking your questions. For those of you that need to leave, thank you so much for joining us. Any questions? Please feel free to share them in the chat, or we could even bring you on camera.
Actually, I do have a quick question. You know, I wonder about the branding, and I think, Sarah, you even mentioned how it can evolve. And I think there is an interesting, you know, I have some hesitation about identifying a particular brand because I feel like, oh, well, wait a minute, that's not quite right. Or it feels like there's more to it and that it may change, or how do I allow it to evolve?
It's so not set in stone. I mean, you are an evolving human being. So you could trial something on and like next week, ditch it and go with something else, or have it expand. Or, you know, some of those statements that we had, you know, you can collapse it or expand it. And so the very same leader that I brought up originally of She Creates Space, she and I have worked on a second version that is different. But again, she's a senior leader at a university, but her teaching days, she was about chemistry and biology. And we are actually using different concepts of chemistry and biology in our coaching together, but it's also, so let me see if I can even remember this. It's about evolving the learning experience for others. So the evolution had the biology ring in a way that it like creates fireworks. So it had something to do with like the chemical reaction that can happen. And she's like, that's going to be the backdrop for her book chapters, but she still is sticking with the creating space as her book title. So in an interesting interplay, we were able to work in both of those, but she really loved the first one and it's worked with her for a few years now, but you don't have to stick with it. Totally not.
Right. Yeah. But I love that. I love that. There's like it sounds like there's like an essence, you know, there's like elements of you that you may have, and it may like, you know, kind of work its way through what that brand is and sort of are like the fundamental aspects, but then you can evolve it and in some way.
And once you start getting an idea of it, you'll start noticing and looking for it for yourself. And that's where the confidence and internal confidence, even if you do nothing else with this, that's where it comes from. So when I landed on the idea of stop fighting yourself, you know, call a truce and trust your greatness again. Like, okay, how am I doing that with myself? I'm kind of, you know, fighting with myself, you know, and not whatever dynamic it might be. But then the trust your greatness again, I now notice that that's what I do naturally. Like that's the greatness that we cultivated today, is that I was just trying to elicit what was already there for you. So that has given me a lens for what I do, but at any point in time, I can adapt it. So it just, I guess it's a compass, but it doesn't have to be set in stone.
Right. Very good.
So, I'm so
great.
excited that you have partners. You have partners to noodle on with this.
Yes, exactly. And I'll take advantage of the follow-up session. So thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Okay. Great.
And I see that Allison, Anna, Karen, you're still online. If you have any questions of Sarah, we'd love to hear from you. You can put them in the chat, or we could bring you on camera. Would love to hear any questions you might have. You got some clapping there.
Yeah.
So again, Allison, Anna, Karen, any questions? Love to hear. You can just put them in the chat.
Unless they stepped away, but that's fine too.
We also had some feedback from Jeff. Said, thanks for a wonderful presentation. And Emily said, great session. Thank you. And so we had some good feedback for you. But Allison, Anna.
So glad that you got value. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
All right, last call. Allison, Anna, Karen, Sherry, any questions before we wrap up? Sarah's happy to entertain them. All right. Well, then we'll wrap this up and say, again, thank you for joining us. Sarah, thank you for presenting and giving us generous with your extra time to answer questions. We appreciate it. Thank you to the whole team that helped make this possible. For all of you that participated today, enjoy your weekend. Take care.
Thank you.